Hello and welcome to Behind the Gavel with Board of Commissioners President Elizabeth Rogan. I'm Tom Walsh, Public Information Officer for Lower Merion Township. Hello, Liz. Good to see you again.
Great to be here.
A number of things have happened since we last sat in these chairs.
We did. We have a lot of changes going on.
Lots of budget things to address and financial things that have been passed by the board, and also some projects that are coming up during the year. But I wanted to kick things off by first talking about our outgoing Township Secretary, Eileen Trainer.
Eileen, who was here for 31 years, many of which I was here, but not all of them. But 31-year president. And so I think that she's the first secretary of the Board of Commissioners who most people who work now in the township have seen leave and transition. So we actually have an amazing township secretary who probably most of the community already knows. But in case they don't, Jody Kelly was sworn in on the 9th, I think, of January. And so she's a lifelong Belmont Hills resident, and she is now Jody Kelly, but she used to be Jody Lutz, and so people might remember her father, who was a 20-year township commissioner and president of the board. That's right, for 1 year, I believe. And actually Jody's been working for the township for 25 years almost, so people probably know her from either her father or all her tenure here. So it's exciting to have a new township secretary.
That's right. Yeah, and Jody has worked for Township Manager Doug Cleland for many if not most of those years. And so she's moving across the hall into a great position. But Eileen, 31 years, she was honored by the Board of Commissioners on December 19th, and then again
also by we had a nice going away party for her, so we celebrated her, all of her colleagues, and then we also. She actually got a recognition from the Ardmore Initiative. They put a plaque on the bench that's outside the Township building on Long Lancaster Avenue. So that was really nice of them. And I know that she got commendations from our state representatives and
she was sent off
commendations. Yeah, commendations from all sorts of different places. She's a remarkable woman. I hope that she just absolutely has the longest, healthiest, most fun retirement ever of anybody.
Yeah, she has some good plans worked out.
Sun. I bet there's sun in those plans.
That's right. Well, let's dive into the budget if we can, doing a little bit of a recap. At that December 19th meeting, the 2013 budget was approved by the board.
Yeah, no tax increase. And that, even though we have no...
Second year in a row.
Yes, second year in a row. Not only second year in a row, but this budget, even though it had no tax increase, contemplates 8 new people coming into it, and that's a pretty remarkable thing to have no tax increase, even though we're considering hiring people. And it did have an increase, though, because it increased the
solid waste fees
by not quite 10%, by almost 9%, and then we might end up having to pick up the sanitary sewer rental rates, but we won't decide that until
April, I believe.
Springtime. So. But no tax increase, second year in a row. It's pretty remarkable. And I think that part of the reason we could do that for 2 years in a row is because we had a lot of one-time revenue, business tax revenue that came in. So we had, I think, 2.9
million
in last year, and then in the year before, in 2011, we had 6.9 million. So those unexpected dollars, I think, help a lot. It's not that it was windfalls, which is a common catchphrase people like to use. It's basically like we were waiting for it, and now finally it's been submitted, and so we get to manage our budgets to that with the money that we should have been having. So, and then we also got, because we had that one-time money come in, we could catch up on some of the stuff that we were having to control very carefully, like we refurbished the equipment fund because we had been cutting that in half. Contributions to that were cut in half for several years, and we also would take extra funding out of it. So we put $1 million into that, and then we put $5 million into capital projects. So, we not only had that, no tax increase for 2 years, but we had a catch up on our capital fund, a catch up on our equipment fund, and in the meantime, we're still doing amazing things with our community facilities, like our libraries
and these
parks.
These transfers were, of course, voted on and approved by the
board. Absolutely. Nothing happens without that.
That's right. That transfer to the Capital Projects Fund of $5 million, that allowed us to postpone the 2013 new money issue.
Yeah,
right?
Which we haven't had to go to bond.
Issue, excuse me,
the bond issue, we haven't bonded since 2010. So, we'll be doing it now. In February, I think we'll be approving, hopefully, the new money bond issue. But because we could put that money that we had been waiting for into the capital program, we were able to wait 3 years before we had to go back to the bond.
Some other things, the board approved a 4-year labor contract with the FOP Lodge 28, also on December 19th.
And that had some good improvements to it for the police department. It had, market rate based wage increases, and it had improvements to the pension payments and to their vision and health and dental programs. It also had some really important cost containment features in it that will help. Doesn't hurt at all the police department and the servicemen, but it does help our taxpayers in the long term in terms of saving dollars. And it affects both active and retirees for the police department. So that was a really amazing thing. And that the collective bargaining unit for the workers' associations coming up in next year, 2014. So we'll be back again to do another labor contract
through the end of 2014.
Right.
That's the Workers Association.
For everybody else, like the guys that work outside that are not policemen.
And non-management employees.
Most,
So the township is doing some limited hiring.
Like I mentioned before, that in the budget, even though we had we had no tax increase, we haven't hired anything other than police recruits for like 5 years. So we have about.
I can rattle off as a public service announcement here the jobs the township is advertising for. It's highway supervisor, parks crew leader, as well as crossing guards. And also, we're looking internally first for promotional opportunities for 8 vacancies in public works and parks.
Yeah.
So it'll be good to see those jobs filled. The people doing
it's been a very long time, and there is. At least according to people that talk to me and my constituents, we've been treading water and holding our breath, but it's good that we'll be filling those positions. I think that people will always see that their tree wasn't trimmed when they wanted it yesterday, or their pothole wasn't fixed the day they called, but we'll get back caught up on some of the stuff that we were having to hold off on. So it's a very good thing, I think. And the police recruitment's going on now too, so we have recruitment. It'll be a small group that we have for recruitment, but the tests were just given, and I think it was to over almost 400 people applied to take to take the test, and then the orals are starting now, I think, too.
That's right. Yeah.
So
it's a good force.
It is.
It has a great reputation around the state and the country even.
That's good. And so if everybody, when we have a crew that's going to be coming in, they're all invited to come join us at the swearing-in ceremony, because it's a nice event for the families and for the police officers, but it's also that's a nice thing for the community to participate in as well.
Speaking of the police, I just wanted to put a plug in for Mike McGrath, our superintendent of police. He's going to be taking a week or so of training in Israel, anti-terrorist training that he was invited to go to. And so we'll come back and talk with him on LMTV about that, perhaps. So speaking of the new money bond issue, the board voted on January 16th to proceed with that new money bond issue for 2013.
Okay.
$10 million?
$10 million, yep. And so we'll be voting on that in the board meeting in February. And so the bond money is for the capital improvement program. And so the capital improvement program is really, it's many different things. It's our plan, it's our working plan. It's really an important thing. So like Don Cannon, our public works manager, has said, one of the things he was talking about was the bridge repairs, and I think people always think about bridges, and at least in my neighborhood there's a bridge that we're not responsible for that's finally back open again. And but we were talking about the bridges that we have to deal with, and he was talking about the Pennswood Bridge in Bryn Mawr, Pennswood Road Bridge, and also the Union Avenue Road Bridge. I think that those bridges are ancient and they're really beginning to
more than 40
deteriorate.
Years old.
Yeah, and they really need to be replaced. And when the township does bridges, it's 95% grant money, and and then some township money, but it's mostly grant money. And the projects they're really expensive, but
and they're roadways and bridges that these bridges are bridges that people tend to really take for granted because they're not span bridges, right? You sort of drive over them and sometimes you don't even know you're doing it.
Well, when you drive over the Union Avenue Bridge, you definitely know that you're driving over it, and you're probably a little scared.
Yeah, so that one is definitely looking scary.
They're getting old, and they really need to be worked on. But, even though they're so expensive to do, I think that the community needs to understand that the staff is really conscientious, and they look to maximize any township dollars that are going into it. The best, the taxpayers get their money leveraged, they get their money maximized, and so, like, for example, we don't have, it's not just the township's money going in, but as I said, it's grant money, so it's federal highway money that gets matched by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation money. So that's an example of how they leverage money, and we do that for projects all, in many different ways, not just our bridges.
This is kind of an amazing figure. 95% of the costs to replace those bridges come from grant funding.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think that's nationwide that those types of roads, state roads and stuff, have mostly grant money, and we're lucky because that could change, given the state of the economies. But when Don was talking about bridges and he talked about those two, I was actually pretty surprised when I looked back at the capital improvement program and saw that those are two of only a few bridges. There's
5 others, right?
Yep, and they're all going to have to be included. I was really surprised to see that one of them was right in my little neighborhood, which...
This is not right away, but it was
No, yeah. So it's Cherry Lane and Merion Bridge and Remington Road and Violet Lane and Mill Creek. Those are 5 of the bridges, but that's not even... There's another 25 that the township owns that aren't in right now, the bridge maintenance program. So, we have 2 that we talked about that are coming up that are really in bad need. We have 5 others that are coming up soon. So there's a lot of, it's a lot of big money and they're big jobs, and that's only one little part of our capital improvement program.
Just a tiny slice of the CIP. Yeah. Okay, well, look, why don't we take a break and we'll come back and talk about libraries.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll be right back with Behind the Gavel. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Gavel with Board of Commissioners President Elizabeth Rogan. I'm Tom Walsh, Public Information Officer. Liz, before the break we were wrapping up our conversation about the capital improvement program.
And being the planner that I am, I just want to say what I already said once before, which is how important that is as a planning document. And another reason why I wanted to mention is just because I think it's really important for everybody in our community to understand how the board and the staff uses that planning document, because it's really carefully and crafted and considered when we're putting it together, because it's really it's how we use our taxpayers' money, and it's how we know what we can prioritize what we're going to spend our money on, and it's the things that everybody needs to be safe and needs to retain the quality of life. And people might, like you were saying, people think of it and might not even think of it, but it's really, I think it's a critical thing, and probably part of the reason why people like to live in Lower Merion Township, because we keep investing in our infrastructure.
Yeah, we were just joking around at the break about the 32 bridges that we have. I think most people don't realize that we have 32 bridges throughout the township, and perhaps even more than that. And yeah, the budget and the CIP are big documents. They're very thick, but people should get a hold of them at the libraries and take a look. If you haven't already.
Talking of libraries,
speaking of libraries, that's right. Yeah, it was a good segue. Do you like that? And speaking of capital projects, actually, one of the largest of the past year is rapidly nearing completion, the Bala-Kinwood Library.
It's very exciting.
On the heels of Ludington.
It is. So it's we had a big talk about it in January, and it's on track to open up in April, hopefully. But you never, something could happen.
Just want to give a shout out to Director of Libraries, Chris Steckel. She's just doing an amazing job. A lot of balls in the air, and she's just really handling it with aplomb.
She is, and so now I think that what they're doing is they closed in the building, and they're putting up exterior panel work, and they're framing the walls inside. They're putting up drywall and painting, and
It's got this amazing geothermal heating system there.
That's a very exciting part. So the thing that tiny little things, like the shelving and the furniture is being delivered, and I think that just for everybody to remember, it was about 5,800 square feet on 2 floors that were added, and it reorganized the interior space so that we have a new stair and elevator, and it was, you just mentioned the geothermal system, but it addresses the HVAC stuff and ADA requirements so that now we meet all building codes.
We're talking about an extra 6,000 square feet being added to the balcony.
Just about, and with a geothermal system, so we'll be saving a lot of money in the long run in terms of heating and cooling costs for the life of the building. So that's a huge, another good, really investment, not just in the building, but in our taxpayer dollars. So
some other parts, the second floor renovations integrate and organizes children's services and program space. That's Bala already had a very strong children's programming.
It really did, and I know that people are probably very anxious to get back and get to use it because it's a great program. And the cost that we had for the project, I think it was $7.3 million. It's still close to being on budget, and so then soon it's going to get to meet up with it.
It's actually still within budget.
It is. That's what we that's what we think and expect and hope. And so then when Ludington opens. When Bala opens, it'll join Ludington, the big flagship library that we just opened, and I know Ludington's been doing an amazing
Bafo business.
Yes, back to its old self in terms of opening in September, and now it's already back up to 50,000 items being circulated a month, and 25,000 people coming in through the doors every month. It's just an amazing library.
Ludington is really packing them in. Was sitting in a senior staff meeting yesterday with Chris Steckel, who I just mentioned. She said she was there this past Saturday, and it was just walled. There was not a seat to be had.
Yeah, I would like to lobby for more chairs in the library. So it's an amazing library.
Luckily, you have your own TV show.
It's just more money. So anyway, I think it's an amazing library, and so I understand that we're getting close to getting a full certificate of occupancy, so we can use the basement, and we can also, I'm so excited about that, we'll actually have in the basement a used bookstore, which I'm a huge
that's going to be great.
fanatic. Yes,
it's a nice space down there. I just saw it on opening day, I believe, but it's going to be a nice intimate little bookstore, and the township needs bookstores.
Yes, because I know that the one that I miss a lot, that was replaced by a book warehouse, may not be staying, so I'm disappointed about that, so I'm really glad. I'm looking forward to Ludington's used bookstore, and
this is referring to the former Borders bookstore in Wynwood.
We're not gonna.
That's long gone now.
And so the other thing that I think is really exciting about the library is that bookstore, but I think that also people were wondering about costs for that library, and we've got the final inspections coming up, and we'll have close out of the project on Ludington, shortly by the end of the month in January, and once we get, resolve some disputes about costs and things, we'll have final numbers for everybody. So we're not going to speculate until we know what the final cost is, but it was very close to being what was listed in the capital improvement budget as being spent. So I don't think anybody needs to worry about dollars being poorly spent. That library speaks for itself, and we'll have the final numbers shortly. And
the Ardmore Library, there's a repair project, which is ongoing still,
and so
that's separate from the renovation project. Ardmore closed in November, for about 5 months.
And then we're going to be regrading, I think, and they're going to fix some of the wood windows and metal windows, and they're going to repair some of the roof joists and the plaster that was inside that looked really, really bad. So they're on schedule. It probably would open about the same time as the Bala Library, but we'll have 2 ribbon cuttings then, so that'll be fun, really fun. But the
further renovations to Ardmore are
being
considered.
Yes, along with Gladwin. We're not. We'll come back and discuss that again. But we're, this isn't the renovation project. This was the repair project.
Right.
So, and I know people might wonder about how the money for these. We were talking a little bit about it. And the foundation, the Library Foundation, which is a nonprofit, has given the township, I think $400,000 just now.
This is the Lower Merion Library Foundation.
Right, and so they I think the total that comes out to is about 1.2 million, and that helps us with the costs, and that's not, you know, taxpayer money. That's all donation money. And
2012 alone, the foundation received about $216,000 in gifts and pledges.
So if you want, I'm sure that you can put up on the screen how you can
people. Right now.
Okay, good. They can please. I would recommend anybody who's interested and loves the libraries to get a hold of the foundation, and visit on the website or go to the library department page on our website and consider making a contribution, because they're really amazing resources that serve the entire community.
That's great. Why don't we move on to what I guess we refer to as award season?
There's a lot of those.
There's the Oscars. We don't have anything to do with that.
Well, they might come to ours and celebrate with us.
Sure.
We have amazing programming, so maybe LMTV will be
That's right.
listed soon. So
we're shortlisted for a Golden Globe.
Really? Oh, well, that sounds pretty amazing. So, but we have our own amazing awards that we do too. I know the Environmental Advisory Council does the Go for the Green, and I know that there's a lot of different categories. One of the ones I like the best is the Joe Manco Lifetime Achievement Award. And Joe was the president of the board. Well, was on the board and then the president of the board when I was still on staff here. So that's a wonderful program that I think it's in Ashbridge House, and it's in the springtime, I think May 21st or something like that.
Urging residents to make nominations, and the other categories I can read off for you: residential, commercial, organization, educational, and commercial site greening, and those nominations are due by 4:30 on March the 1st.
Yep.
And I guess we could put up on the screen where they should go. They should be addressed to Andrea Campisi in Building and Planning, and contact Andrea with any questions. You just give her a phone call at 645-6112 or email at acampisi@lowermerion.org. So May 21st at Appleford.
Yep, and then before that one, there's even more. There's the Employee Recognition Awards.
That's right, and the Township ERA Awards.
Yeah, and it's an exciting event. It's at 1 o'clock on the 3rd of April, so the month before you can come to another event.
And we will be broadcasting that live here on LMTV.
Yay, that's a good thing.
As well.
And then there's also not only Employee Recognition Awards and the EAC Awards, but there's the Historic Preservation Awards, and that's given by the Historical Commission and the Historic Architectural Review Board, which are the two organizations that work and advise the Board of Commissioners on the amazing historic resources that are found everywhere throughout the township. And that is one tiny little way that we get to, as a Board of Commissioners and as a community, to thank the public for making an investment in what makes Lower Merion so special, which is its history being preserved in fabric. So I look forward to those awards every year. I think that they're a very small token and show of appreciation for the community and for the volunteers that do all the work that they volunteer.
Yes.
All of our advisory committees are professionals generally in the field, not just people who are interested in it, and they give their time for free. So it's
and that's held in May at the Merion Tribute House.
So May is a fun time. Spring is a celebration time of awards and acknowledgments.
But meantime, we're still in the middle of winter, a short time remaining. I wanted to talk about, although we haven't had really major winter weather events, although we could have by the time somebody sees the show.
Or when they're watching it, they might be home having a hot chocolate watching Channel 7's Behind the Gavel.
And staff is definitely prepared for significant snow or ice storm. We've been talking a lot about it lately, actually.
We have, and we put together, Don Cannon put together a brochure that I thought was a really great brochure, and there was one thing in the brochure that I thought was really a brilliant idea. That's a new idea, which is that if you don't have a driveway that you can put your car in, or a nearby public parking lot that you can put your car in when we have to plow the streets, that if you have to leave your car on the street, that if you, on the even years, park on the even side of the street, on the odd years, 2013, you park on the odd side of the street. I thought that was probably many people do that, but I just never thought of it, so I thought it was a good idea.
There's all kinds of little protocols, but if you have a driveway, park in your driveway.
Yes, please. It's much better for everybody's.
That's going to have to do it for this month, Liz.
Okay.
But we'll be back next month from Behind the Gavel. I'm Tom Walsh. I'm here with Liz Rogan, President of the Board of Commissioners for Lower Merion Township. Have a great day.